Welcome to SNG. If you've already subscribed, thank you very much. If you haven't, consider it and hit that bell if you want to know the next time you know the rest of the story. Working on the kicker cover, the actual kicker for this 61 Harley panhead. Has some bad bushings, so I will flip this camera around and show you kind of what I'm getting into right now. All right, so here's the kicker cover. The kicker shaft itself is loose and wobbling. I think I showed you in the last video. If I grab onto this, it wobbles. So I might as well, since we're close, and might as well get it fixed right. So as I'm taking off these, I took off the muffler. This has a set of dual mufflers. I'm starting to notice bolts and nuts and things like that, and I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know a lot about them, but I do know that Chandler Products out of Cleveland manufactured bolts for Harley Davidson for a period of time, and there was another manufacturer called Federal Screw out of Michigan that also made nuts and bolts, primarily bolts for Harley. And if you look, if you can see this, if you see the circle F, those are original Harley bolts. Here's a Chandler. It says CP, and they made 1035s, I think, maybe 1032s and 1038s, which were different. The 1030, the lower number, came earlier. But I noticed that most of the nuts and bolts on this are original from Harley. So as I'm taking them out, I'm seeing things like here's a bolt that is a circle F. This one that came out of here was a Chandler, actually. And I'm looking at, one was put in this way, one was put in this way. And that might maybe getting a little anal. But here's the, if you want to put them back the way that they came, that's what the parts manual's for. You can actually see the nuts and the way they go in, and if there were washers and if there were lock washers and things like that. So that's something you keep an eye on when you're looking at an older bike, as far as, do we have a bunch of original hardware, or is it a bunch of Ace hardware nuts and bolts? And trust me, I've got plenty of Ace hardware nuts and bolts on my bikes. So not a biggie, just something that's cool to know, I guess. Another thing that I noticed is when I was back here and I was looking at and I think they called these were called the silent mufflers from Harley. And then you could buy these extensions, and you could buy different types of extensions. I don't think these came from Harley. Maybe somebody can educate me. I really think that these were aftermarket, and these were dubbed a megaphone tip, or a bugle tip, some people called them, I believe. So those were added on. And when I got in the back, I noticed that, it was just, one was hanging real low and one was high. And as I started to look, see this mount, this is to support the exhaust here. And that's been chromed, probably when they took the swing arm off to chrome it and chrome the chain guard. They chromed these pieces. This side is not chromed. Looks like an old, there's a Harley sticker, an old new stock maybe part. And if you look at it this way, you can see from about here up, it's bent. So someone's laid this down. Obviously, this bike's been upside down and everything, but so I'm going to take this off and I'm going to straighten that up. Stuff like that riding behind, not that I'm going to be riding behind this too many times, but when I am, it'd drive me crazy. So we're going to straighten that up. But this video is all going to be about tackling that and changing the bushings. So we'll start to get into here shortly. We'll be back in just a little bit. All right, welcome back. I've went ahead and I've taken out the fill plug and drained the transmission fluid. So if you take the center of this kicker cover and come right down and right up underneath, right there's the drain plug for the transmission. So I have taken that plug out. We've drained transmission fluid. Here's the plug. I don't think that these plugs had magnets in them, but they did have indentations that the heavies would drop down in. So when you're taking your plugs out, I would always kind of look at this and look on your magnet if there's a magnet, and I'm going to dig down in and kind of pull some stuff out, and you can see some nasties. If you take that in your fingers and kind of rub it around, if it's metallic sand almost, or very like mud, and there's not anything that's going to stick in your finger, or you're getting metal shavings or anything like that, I would say that's a pretty good sign. So, and that's how this is. There's not any shavings. That's more like a mud, just wear and tear from gears working against each other. So, real happy about that. So, with that, 2 thumbs up. So, the next thing I did notice, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the clutch or the shifter rod linkage here, and then I'm going to undo all of these nuts and pull this cover off and try to get inside and see what's all going on in there, and see if I can get those bearings pressed out and new ones pressed in. But while I was taking off, I mentioned earlier about the muffler, how it was sticking up, and you can see here, if I lay that flat, you can see how much it's bent. That's the reason the tip was up so much. Someone laid it down and bent this bar that holds that, and you can see how that's bent pretty good. On the other side, I found, let's see here, I don't know if I've already moved it, but there's another bolt that needs to be straightened out somewhere. But we're going to straighten these things up. You'll have that. So we'll be back here as I start to take this kicker cover off, and we'll see what's inside. All right. So I heated this bar that holds the right side muffler out that was bent, that you could see when you stood behind the bike, the muffler was about an inch and a half higher than the other. And now I've got that laying right. You can see where I heated it up. I'm not really concerned about taking tensile strength out or anything. I don't think that's a hardened piece of steel anyhow. But all it holds is a muffler. So I got that. Also straightened up that bent bolt. Probably took the hardness out of it, but I'm good with that. It's not holding the frame together or anything that I'm going to fall off of my seat. But so that's done. I did come over here, and I decided to mock this up real quick, so that you can see the whole disassembly. So I'm going to set this up on a stand and put the rubber band to it, and I'll be right back. All right, so what you'd do is you'd loosen this nut and pull this pinch bolt out so that you can get your kicker off. And I've already had this apart. I just put this back together so someone could see it if they wanted to. Pop that off, pull your kicker off. I'll usually put my parts back together so I don't have to memorize where all the bolts go. There's usually some type of a decorative cover, maybe not, that needs to come off. So we'll pop that off. I'll put that screw back in. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this clutch arm off. Now some models you can undo your clutch rod over on the opposite side and take all these nuts off and pull this kicker cover off and bring this rod, this arm right with that, all in one fail swoop. So you can't do that with this particular model. It bends up, it hits back against the inner primary case, and I can't get it through, so I will have to take this off. So I'm gonna take this 5/8 nut off. And there's a square rectangular shaft that goes in this, and although these things typically pop off pretty quick, easy, some of the times they don't. So I'm gonna not film while I'm fighting that. I'm gonna try to take this off without, hurting anything inside, and I'll be back, and then we'll take these nuts off and pull that kicker cover off. All right, well, that took a lot longer than expected. I tried to get this clutch arm off of the clutch rod, or clutch, I'm not even sure what the proper term of that is, but that's a clutch arm, and that's what engages and disengages your clutch. So I couldn't get it off, and I heated it, and I beat it a little bit to the point where I felt like I didn't want to beat it anymore. So I had to get a gear puller. So I went and picked up a couple different gear pullers that I have for the, heating and air conditioning industry. Got this style here, hub puller and a gear puller, and this style here, and a bigger one than this one. And this one's the one that works. So what I had to do was, first of all, I couldn't get on this because my oil filter cover that sets right here was in the way, and I could not get it without taking off the oil cover. So I unscrewed the bottom gasket to take the oil cover off, and I couldn't get the oil cover off of the oil filter. And the reason I couldn't get the oil filter off of the oil, or the oil cover off of the oil filter, I'm going to assume some things here. You can see how this oil bag's been bent. My guess is someone laid it down, and that's where, with these safety bars and stuff, I don't know how you get back in this tight without tearing this off and bending your kicker and things like that. That's where I think somebody beat this thing with a hammer, maybe. Somebody was pissed. But I think that this whole oil filter was jammed back in, and that's what created that dent. And when that happened, this tube was also bent in. So I couldn't get that filter housing past this tube and this knuckle. It would hit. So I had to get in with a trusty pry bar and start to pry this out without putting too much torque on this. and you know, get that. Probably created some leaks. Who knows? We'll find that out the next step. But finally got that pulled out enough to where I could get that off and then get the actual oil filter out, which gave me room. So moral of the story is be prepared for all sorts of stuff. Don't get bent out of shape when you don't get where you want to go. Been trying to teach myself that for 60 plus years. Still hard. But I was able to get that in. Has a divot in the top. So I put that right in the divot and adjusted these to where I needed them. And I was able to tighten this up. And to the point where it was pulling so hard, I was scared. So I put some oxygen acetylene heat here. And finally, with a little torque here and a little heat there and a little torque there and a little spray here, it popped free. So that's where we're at right now. And I still haven't even got it completely off. I think it's right. Yeah, it was ready to go right now, but that's still a little warm. I'm just gonna. Matter of fact, I'll go to the other side and see if I can take that piece out. So there's your piece. Now, here's a question for some people out there that do these. Is that a normal bend? Or is that another place where someone took a hammer and beat the crap out of this thing? I don't know. Maybe that was meant to be like that. Maybe not. I don't know. So if anybody knows, let me know. So now what I'm going to do, now that I have that, you know, I can actually get this kicker cover off. I'm going to go ahead and start to take off these nuts. And I won't bore you, but I'm going to come around and undo them all evenly. And I'll be back. I'll probably put the kicker back on because it's spring loaded. And I'm going to push it as I'm kicking it just a little bit to take the spring pressure off from inside of the gears. And then I'll hopefully this thing will come out real nice. So let me get these nuts off and we'll be back and find out if it does come off smooth. All right, well, I have put the kicker just temporarily back on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the spring pressure off of the gear inside. So I'm going to turn this and hopefully the thing will come right off. Okay, I'm just watching to see what all falls out. That's throw-out bearing. So there we go. Here's this side. Here's the throw-out bearing. And some muck. And I am going to take this and get this cleaned up. And we will we'll have another video on getting into the bushing and seeing if we can get that changed. We'll see if we can get this. I don't know if you can see that move. This gear right here. So that's what we're trying to repair. So we'll be back shortly after we get some things cleaned up, and we'll inspect in here, and we'll take it a step at a time. All right, so I'm kind of inspecting this, and I'm hoping, love to get some comments from some people that have done this. I'm a kicker cover virgin. Never been into a panhead kicker cover. So I'm looking at all these gears. All these gears look pretty good. It's got the lock tab. Is the all still there? I haven't taken out the throw out bearing, but you know, it's got a little bit of wear there. I would assume that that's normal. So I'm going to look in here, and I can see a part of that bushing right there, this brass bushing. So anyhow, what I'm going to do, I also looked at this side. So, and I found some interesting stuff. Now, if you see down here, there's a lot of metal. Not shavings, but war metal. I mean, that's all metallic. That's like metallic mud. I'm assuming this hasn't been off of here and cleaned in quite some time. But I'm not seeing any chunks, which I'm happy with. But you can definitely see there's a lot of metallic mud. So I can show you where I about dropped the camera in that oil right there. Boy, that would have been beautiful. So here is what I saw as I'm looking at these teeth. Okay. Teeth aren't looking too bad. I'm digging all that. And then check this out. See those two? This one here is starting to get a big wear, and this one here is really wore. So, and this one here is probably wore the worst. Hopefully you can look at that. There you go. And there, so it's like one tooth starts there, second tooth, third tooth, a little bit on the fourth tooth, a little bit on the fifth tooth, not much on the sixth, and then it kind of hits the seventh, and it's beautiful here on out. So why would one of those teeth, or four of those teeth, five of those teeth wear more than others? I can't answer that question right now. I did notice that this is a little spring-loaded bead ball. I don't know if that would have fallen out if it was the other direction, but I'd like to find out how wore is too wore on these. When do those need replaced? Would you replace that, being that I'm in this deep, or is that something that you let roll for a period of time? So if you have any comments for me, greatly appreciate the input. I'm going to start to clean all of this stuff up, do some research, talk to some people, and I'll let you know what I find out.